Is Manuel Oyewole. Welcome to the Role Model. Like you know, on this show, for those who have been listening, and for those who are tuning in for the first time, on this show, what we do is to serve you some dose of motivation, and we do that simply by bringing you inspiring stories of people from different walks of life, people who have achieve success in their chosen field, people who are doing something significant and indeed something, worth talking about. We have them share their stories and indeed, more importantly, have them share the values that have shaped them into the person that they are today. And of course, we do this in hope that their stories, their successes, and indeed their failures, we challenge you out there, to get up, give life your best shot, and of course, to be the best indeed that you can be. In the words of Jim Rohn, success, it's simply doing the same thing over and over again without losing enthusiasm. And don't forget, you can keep up with us on social media at Ima for Impact and of course at Value Lines on Instagram and indeed on Twitter to keep a wrap on the show. I have a guest in the studio this morning. He was with us. He was supposed to be with us a few weeks back, but of course, Lagos happened, traffic happened, and then we had to do a telephone conversation, which wasn't too clear. But today, based on popular demand, we have him live in the studio. This morning, my guest is an indigenous of Ilaje, Ondo State in southwestern Nigeria. He was born in the Niger Delta region of the country, where he was raised in a polygamous home with 16 other children. At age 12, he learned how to ride a motorcycle, so he could fish at a lake, to be able to provide for his entire family every morning before going to school. He's a graduate of geography and regional planning from the University of Lagos, where he was keenly involved in anti-cultism and anti-corruption advocacy. He's also a master's degree holder in public administration from the Columbia University. In 1989, he took part in the student protests, that protest against conditions of the IMF loan of $120 million that was used, or that was supposed to be used, I beg your pardon, for the oil pipeline in Nigeria. Among other conditions of the IMF loan were to reduce the number of universities from 28 rather, I beg your pardon, to 5. His passion and desire for media was propelled during the military rule, and in 2006, he began Sahara Reporters in a small room in Manhattan to fight against corruption and government practices. On February 25, 2018, he announced his intention to run for president of the prestigious nation called Nigeria. He's also the candidate of the AAC. Welcome this morning to the show, everybody, Mr. Omoyele Sowore.
Thank you.
Showole, good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for
Great to
me
have you
show.
this morning. Thank you
you
very much. You made a huge sacrifice coming here this morning. I mean, you've flown from Nigeria to Australia back, something hours journey, and here you are in the studio live.
It took me 3 days
looking
to get
tired.
to Australia.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Thanks for coming, sir. We are humbled by your appearance. Now, let's quickly go in, Mr. Sowore. Time is not our friend this morning. We want to cover all we can within this limited time.
You have a lot of questions.
Definitely loads of questions. Now, you were born in the Niger region of the country.
Yes.
Even though you hail from Ilaje in Ondo State.
Okay. It used to be Laje Seldo local government. Now it's Seldo. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually a Poi. I'm a Joe Poi from Ondo State.
Okay. Can you give us a background to your growing up? Because according to your story, family of 12
we were 20
siblings?
at a point.
Wow.
20 kids at a point.
So
16 of us survived.
Wow.
So I'm the first son of a family, first child.
Okay.
Yeah, of a polygamous family. My dad has 3 wives.
So how was it growing up in that polygamous family? How was it for you having, to basically, quote unquote, compete with several other kids from your parents?
If it was competition, it would have been great. I had to care for them. I was mostly responsible for helping the other kids grow up. There'll be times I'll be left with all these kids at home when my parents go out to farm or go fishing, and some of the times some of them are sick. They have malaria. They'll be crying and they'll be fighting, struggling. Some of them, sometimes it was tough. It was tough. Just being responsible. I think I grew up as a parent too early in life. I was part of the parenting. I wasn't competing with anybody. Nobody was competing with me.
So at age 12, you were already fishing for your younger ones to have a
9 years
livelihood?
old. 9 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, but I had the opportunity of riding the bikes to the lake at 12. Yes.
That means from that tender age, you've taken that responsibility of being, responsible for your siblings.
That's right.
All right, that's amazing. Tell us about your schooling, Mr. Sowore.
At school, I think I homeschooled at first.
Okay.
Homeschooling meant that I traveled with my dad, who's a teacher.
Okay.
So we'll travel on a canoe to wherever he's transferred. And whenever we get to class, he'll dress me up, we go to school.
Okay.
And I'll be moving from class to class, and referred to as a teacher's
So
son.
you were not putting on uniforms, you just go from class to class?
I didn't have uniform. I just sat, I sat on the laps of mistresses and not his mistresses, but we call them mistresses.
I understand.
Because they liked me a lot, and
Okay.
so I'll go from class to class. Whomever was friendly that way, I'll be in their class. And so, but at home, my dad would teach us whatever is taught to primary 1 kids or primary 2 when it was the second year, and then he'll force us to do homework assignment,
Okay.
and then we'll go for a siesta.
Okay.
And so that was pretty elitist growing up, but it didn't last. It didn't last. Yes.
So what happened? What happened along the way?
Oh man, the Nigerian economy caved in. I would say, and then they stopped paying teachers their salaries. Even though then the salary wasn't enough to maintain the family, but he had some other gigs on the side.
Okay.
His sister, my mom, had a kiosk in the village, so we had extra income. But over time, as Nigeria unraveled, things began to fall apart.
So what secondary school did you go to?
I attended secondary school in my village known as Community High School, Kiribo.
Okay.
I was one of the first students. In fact, we went to a school that we built ourselves.
Wow.
When Chief Obafemi Awolowo Free Education Policy touched us in 1980, they brought the school there.
Okay.
It was just it was barren land and the paperwork, and they asked us to go and do the work. So we're the ones who molded the blocks, and then they brought
So
in
you were the
carpenters.
builders and also the students.
Yes. So when we finished
amazing.
building the school, we just became students in the school. But
That's interesting. That's interesting. So then from there you went to Unilag.
I went from there to not to Unilag. After I finished secondary school at the age of 14, I was too young, and I didn't do too well. I'm not shy to say that.
Okay.
So my father returned me back to secondary school, another secondary school, Fedekwe Comprehensive High School in Okitipupa, not far from our village. Spent 2 years there before I did WAEC, did well. And then I applied to JAM. I wrote JAM twice, and eventually came to Unilag, 1989.
Okay. So the journey for you for activism began in Unilag.
I would say it began at home,
Okay.
but I didn't have any chance to be an activist other than doing things that kids shouldn't do, like listen to Fela. So, yes, I remember when Fela came out with Zombie, I was one of the people who secretly listened. I liked it.
Okay.
So I was asking, who's this fella? And then my dad used to bring in newspapers whenever he went to collect salary. So he'll bring in Sketch and Tribune.
Okay.
And I saw stories about fella. I would read them, and he was like, I hope this guy. I hope they don't kill this guy. So that one day I'll meet him. I eventually met him at the University of Lagos in 1992. I think it was 1992 or 93.
Okay.
Yes. So and then I became a big fan ever since then. But it was a very interesting life. When I got to Unilag, was the first time I came in contact with people that you refer to as real activists. People like Femi Falana,
Okay.
Bamidele Aturu, Chima Obani, Gbenga Olawepo now, and several activists who were student activists at that time. At the University of Lagos, outside of Unilag, who used to come around, and I met Chief Gani Fawemi, later Ben Kaur and some Kuti, Akaba Shorun, Ulisa Bakoba, Ayobe. I've been, I'm friends with all of them.
And then you had your academic journey punctured by 2 years for activism's sake?
Yeah, it wasn't punctured. I would say, I was expelled twice.
Okay.
But my expulsion only lasted for as long as the school was closed.
Okay.
And the school was closed so many times during that period, either due to ASU strike or closure based on student protest.
Okay.
And I engaged in a lot of those.
So why were you expelled twice?
I was expelled first in 1992 because we had Babangida Must Go protest.
Okay.
And all the student leaders who led the protest were expelled. 47 of us in those days, led by Olusegun Mayegun, who was NAS president. He was arrested with Gani Fawemi Falana, and those of us who led the protest were also expelled from the university.
Okay.
And in 1994, after we had a huge anti-court campaign and I was attacked physically, the school authorities expelled me, alongside the court guys that we're fighting against.
Now, going by all those incidences,
Yes.
were there times your parents spoke to you and said, my son, look, you have to cut down on your activities. It's causing a lot of harm. Were there times they spoke to you to cut down on your protests and all that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
My dad came the first time I was expelled, they sent a letter to the village. And I guess it was to embarrass the entire village to understand that, look, the guy you sent to
Lagos to school
Lagos
is doing something else.
has flunked out of school. And just to serve as a lesson to others who might be in the village who
want to do
might
same
be inspired by my, according to them, wayward lifestyle. So they took the letter to the village. You know, imagine in Nigeria where letters couldn't travel to any village.
Went all the way to the village.
And they made sure it was delivered overnight. You know, I don't know how it got there. My father took the letter after reading it in the village meeting and the family meeting, and came to Lagos to see my uncle and say, you know, threw the letter to on my uncle's table. I was staying at First Tag. I knew I was expelled, but I didn't tell anybody. So I was just living like a normal person.
So how did your father feel when he got that letter?
So my uncle said to my dad, you know, it's impossible. I stay in the same house with this guy. He's the nicest guy in the world. It's cool. And I had like a holiday gig at that time at Rank Zeros. So he said he goes to work and comes back. If you ask him to do anything, he'll do it. I don't. This is a mistake. So my father followed me to Inlag. I was about to enter the elevator. He saw posters pasted everywhere. I was running for president of Student Union then. And my slogan was sorry, I think it was like when circumstances are difficult, you know, only the extraordinary stand, something like something. Okay. You know, when circumstances are beyond the ordinary, only the. My father read it and said, "Yeah, Paripa, are you the one who wrote this?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This is the reason they expel you," but he still didn't believe it. So he took me upstairs to see the dean of my faculty. Okay. And the dean told him outright that, you know, that's your son. They're looking for him because he's planning to overthrow the government. So my dad ran out of the dean's office because I didn't enter the office with him. I knew that the dean could call the police on me. So I came out and said, "Look, I've just confirmed that, you know, they're not going to lift this expulsion. You have committed crime of the biggest proportion. They're trying to overthrow the government. It's like treason."
So would you say those songs of Fela in those days actually had a large influence, you know, on your life?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. I'd already made up my mind about the military when I was 10 years old because my village was invaded by the police. Okay. And a lot of bad things happened that night. So the songs, I listened to them more, you know, because Fela's songs have two dimensions, I have to tell you. There's the lyrics, which most people don't listen to. Yeah. And then there's beats. There's the beats, which are more in tune. And the third aspect of it is Fela's own character. His personality. Yeah, personality that most people who are talking about Fela have never listened to his lyrics. They just know the beat and they know his reputation, like this crazy guy. You know, but I listened to his lyrics very early in life, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, you know. And to understand that he would do a songs like Zombie and stand his ground, it was like, you know, if I want, you know, so it was inspiration, there's no doubt about it. But I also listened to other people. But in spite of this most important, I listened to myself a lot. Okay. In
spite of these experiences, you still went ahead, you know, to organize several other protests.
Absolutely.
What informed all that? You were not deterred by the expulsion and all that?
No. Each time they expelled us, we'll go back to school and organize even bigger protests to get reinstated. So, for example, in 1994, when we were expelled along the court guys, when we came back to school, they thought they didn't even think I would come back. They thought I would have been scared. So we came back, organized a massive rally on campus, and that rally attracted, you know, the attention of the military authorities because in one of the rallies we had an exam boycott. The next day after the school resumed, and I figured out how to enter the campus because they had signs all over the place that I was wanted, and there were like 500 policemen at the gate of the university. I got in. We had a massive rally, and the next day, Mike Ahigbe used to be, I think he was the chief of general staff, or he was a deputy leader of the military. And he was also a law student. So we went to his class, and he was writing the exam, you know, of course, protected with guards. And the students went in there, and they made a mess of the exam. And he called the VC right there. He's like, "I thought you were going to solve the problem." So by afternoon, the vice chancellor wrote the school authorities wrote the press release that we've been granted amnesty. So we're the first set of people to get amnesty in this country. You know? But in addition to that, they also granted the court guys amnesty. So that was the initial intention anyway, to make sure that, you know, because the court guys were the kids, the children of the rich and the powerful.
Okay, I think the height of your detention or your protest came when you protested in 1998, and then you were kept by SARS operative.
Yes, that was the Nuga Games in 1998, and I'd already graduated. did my NYC, and but a lot of students were expelled. And the military, Abiola had died at this point, Abacha died, and the military, Abu Salam government then, had not looked into the case of these victimized students. So I woke up one day and went to Yinlag at the Noga Games, and we started a small protest at the gate of the sports center, and then we were able to force ourselves in and disrupted the games, and it led to...
What's the reason for that?
It was to force them to discuss the issue of expulsion of all the student activists across the country.
Okay.
Yes. So it was, it generated very quickly because there were too many military people around, flexing muscles, and we had so many students around us who were willing to take them on, and it was our territory. So Mike Ahigbe stood up. He was the second in command to Abdul Salam at that time.
Okay.
And as I was speaking and saying to them that except they address the issue, we can't allow the games. He stood up. He's a very temperamental person. He came towards me. Apparently, as he was approaching me, I had myself guarded. So he ran into my elbow and staggered backwards, and he almost fell. And his guys just like wondering what kind of effrontery is this, and they pointed nothing less than 30 guns at me at the same time, and I was just like this mosquito-looking guy. They dropped me to the ground and started dragging me, but the students were like surging towards us. And there was this girl at that time. Her name is Yemi. They call him Yemi Sinoga. She stood there and said, "You are not taking shower anywhere today." And they just couldn't understand that students had such courage. So anyway, we were taken to SARS, detained. I think it was for almost 2 weeks. They detained us as long as the games lasted, just to ensure that we don't come back and do anything on campus. Yes. Okay. So it was shortly after that. I think a few months after that I traveled to the U.S. in 1999.
Was it the detention that made you think I've had enough of Nigeria? I'm leaving this country.
No. It wasn't. I become sick. That was one, and so I wanted to check up on my health outside of the country to be sure what was wrong with me. Because don't forget, at the University of Lagos, I was injected with an unknown substance when I was attacked in 1994. But I was just too stubborn and I was taking treatment at Lute, and the police tried to abduct me from the hospital bed, so I had to be packaged out of Lute, sick, to escape police abduction. Because I arrested the student union leaders led by Malcolm Fabi and several of them, and charged them for armed robbery. Okay. So they wanted to get me, and the information at that time was that if they got me, they would finish me off, because I was the one who knew who all the court guys were and who was leading the fight against cultism, and they had become an embarrassment to the government. So,
but I think, sorry to cut you, I think one of the interesting things about your story was your experience in 1993. According to your story, you rejected 800,000 naira from Abiola. Yes, I mean, a lot of people will be wondering what came over you. That was a large amount of money at that time.
Yeah, we were, not only was it a large amount of money, it probably would be equivalent to almost $800,000 today. Yeah. But it wasn't the first time as a student leader that I would be presented with
such amounts.
Not gift. When Babangida was under a lot of trouble, he gave out 505 Peugeot cars to student leaders across Nigeria. I was one of the few people that rejected it. So it wasn't new to me.
Why did you reject this gift?
Because I know that they were meant to compromise my integrity and prevent me or shut my mouth off or put me in a compromised position so that I can stand up for what I believe. So I also knew that it was Nigerian money stolen by these people that they're using to bribe people. Maybe in the case of Abiola, it might be slightly different, but our position on Abiola in general, even before the election, we were against Abiola and the ruling elite. Everyone knew he was part of them. What drew us to June 12 wasn't Abiola's integrity. It was a position that was based upon our desire to have democratic rule, and we thought, hey, if you ask people to go and vote, whomever they elect, they have a right to be led by that person. So what it has always been my character to be comfortable with my poverty.
But some people have this belief that everyone has a prize, and that if the prize is big enough, you will compromise. Well, what do you think make of that saying?
The people who have those beliefs probably haven't been anywhere else, but been around small things. Yes. If you have large enough conviction, you would understand that there's no price that can buy integrity. Yes. Even Yorubas have this saying that if you are looking for money and you meet prestige on the way, you should go back home, because even when you get money, you still need prestige to survive with it. Yeah.
All right. So in 2006, you
Yeah.
started Sahara Reporters. What
That's correct.
informed Sahara Reporters?
Because
You didn't study mass communication.
I didn't.
So
Yeah.
what informed you going into the media business?
One, it was technology. I'd come
Okay.
across internet and found it to be an interesting way of communicating, and I've always believed in mass communication.
Okay.
Second, it was a time that in the U.S., a lot of activists, especially young activists, were fighting against the World Trade Organization, WTO, and the World Bank in Seattle.
Okay.
And they weren't getting enough coverage from the regular media, mainstream media like CNN. They focused more on the people wearing blue suit inside the conference and ignored the abuse, the torture, of the activists outside. But somehow these activists kept their story alive by publishing their own stories. So that was where the idea of Report Yourself came to me, and I found it to be interesting what the independent media guys did with it. And I started thinking about how to apply it to Nigeria. And that was how the idea. Sahara Reporters didn't start in 2006. It started before 2005, I think.
Okay.
But I wasn't Sahara Reporters at that time. I was with a guy known as Jonathan Elendu. So we were working together on Elendu reports.
Okay.
I was providing information about houses bought by all these Nigerian political office holders, including Atiku at that time, Abubakar Atiku, who bought a 1.7 million house in the U.S., which finally he abandoned when they went after him. I found a house bought by Ojus or Kalu. We found houses bought by Benga Daniel, Saraki. All these guys bought multi-million-dollar houses abroad.
And all these were confirmed?
They were confirmed. In fact,
information?
they were so careless. They left their names on there. And the only person who didn't have his name directly on it was Lucky Gwinedon. Bought a house in London. He didn't put his name there. But how we caught him was that he registered for a gym membership. So they delivered the letter to the house in his name, and we picked it up. That's how we were able to confirm that it was his house. And I think DSP Alamasei also used an offshore account. I think Babangida's son also had houses like that. But they have a way of shielding it, but it's easy to catch them. But in those days, the impunity was much, and they didn't care. They bought it directly under their names.
Okay.
And you could find their names on it, their addresses, and things like that. We just have to know their address in London. In the U.S., it's public information.
And then over the years, you've been able to build Sahara Reporters into a very reputable and respectable media organization.
That's correct.
Such that it's basically authoritative. People from Sahara Reporters, hook, line, and sinker.
That's right.
How did you achieve that? How were you able to build such a reputation to be a trusted media media platform?
I think a lot of people who were in Nigeria at that time when we started, and even now, we're always looking for reputable people to report issues to. And I also found out that the Nigerian media were getting reputable information, but either they were self-censoring or they were using it to do business. So when people found out, after we did a few stories, a few breaking stories, and they saw the courageous way we were reporting, we became the place to go. And what we will ask people is to report yourself to us. But it's important that you provide evidence of the report. If you see somebody is corrupt, we ask for bank account information, we ask for credit card information. And everybody became a reporter at that time. So if they found a Nigerian official checking into a hotel, people would send us pictures of the information that they're paying for it or how they're paying for it. There's some places where, what they're even ordering for. We had such amazing information in those days. And we just kept publishing more, and we kept getting incredible information. And on occasions where we can't, we would dig on our own.
And over the years, you've made so many high-profile revelations.
Yes.
Have there been any time where your life was endangered or threatened based on this reportage?
Oh, absolutely. I think every major story I did endangered my life somehow. And when they can't reach me directly, of course, they got me sued a few times, and I still get sued even till now by pastors, politicians, anybody that is affected directly by these stories, or sometimes even indirectly. They hire third parties to sue me. So it's been like that. But you know what? My life has always been threatened since I probably entered the University of Lagos in 1989, and that'll be 30 years by next year. and whose life is safe here anyways.
So basically, very little is known about your family. Are you married? Do you have children?
Yes, I'm married. I've been married for 14
Are
years.
you deliberately shielding them from the media?
Yeah, in some ways, I just feel like if I don't have their permission to share their information, I know people can be very vicious. And, you have young kids, you want to shield them mentally and psychologically from those kind of vicious people. I have a wife who wants to be private. She has a job. She doesn't rely on me to live her own life, and she... we both, I wouldn't say she requested, but we both agreed that she can be shielded. She's Nigerian too, but she wasn't born here. But she grew up in Nigeria and attended school here. So I have 2 kids that I know of.
That you know of?
Yes.
All right, let's leave that. So the high point of this show basically is to talk about the values that have shaped people into who they are. I mean, from your discussion, basically we've picked up integrity is key to you. What other values have shaped you into the person you are and the person you're becoming over the years?
It's difficult to say their values. I think most of their experiences, experiences I've had, just being thoroughly disappointed, growing up in this country, knowing that every atrocity that was committed against myself, colleagues that I had, experience that I saw on the streets, the education system, they were carefully planned and executed by an elite in this country. So each time that the education system is not working, it's because they wanted to privatize education. Each time they destroy public water pipelines or gas pipelines, it's because it suits their own agenda. Each time they engage in oil bunkering or even outrightly engage in crime, is because of their own selfishness. So these things are what shaped me. I was shaped more by experiences than honestly values, because when you talk about values, you're talking about things that people are built into. Maybe sometimes it could be religious, it could be family, but I would say that honestly my father was a major influence on me. He never made me any one of us feel like we needed to be rich to be able to speak truth to power, or to do what is right. So but again, I think they were mostly experiences.
All right. On the last time, Mr. Shower, you offered yourself for presidency for this country. What informed that decision?
I decided to do that because I know that I can do a better job than all of these guys. I've seen 7 presidents come and go since 1980. I would say 89. Starting from Babangida to Shonekan, Abacha to Abdul Salam, Obasanjo. After that, Yaradua. There was even a time this country was governed by a dead person for 5 months. I surely can be better than that. And then after that, Jonathan and then Buhari. You got to look at all these guys' record and know that a Shawara that has been doing what is right for 30 years will do a better job. And, in addition to having exposure, having the capacity and the character and integrity, which we have talked about today, like definitely, and the stamina, all right? So I can definitely do a better job than any one of these guys. In the first presidential, when I was an aspirant, now a candidate, to come out with, manifestos talking about what to do about Nigeria, and everybody is trying to catch up now.
All right, Mr. Shower, thank you very much for coming on the show. Lagos, that's the wrap on the role model today. I'm sure you've picked some dose of motivation. You can give life your best shot, and of course, you can be the best you can be in every field and any field you indeed find yourself. Mr. Shower, thanks for coming on the show this morning. Lagos, that's a wrap on the show. Don't forget, you can follow us on social media at IMA for Impact, and of course, at Value Lines on Twitter and on Instagram. Till I come your way again next week, do have a wonderful, wonderful day. God bless you.
What makes a role model a role model? Some pass through life with no trace of passage. Others do, leaving huge footprints on the sands of time. Impact, hard work, dedication, focus, and patience is their mantra. They are the role model. Tune in to
Nigeria's first 24/7